staff attraction and retention. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the editor at Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar today is presented by 4Insight. Before we get started with our speakers here today, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, we will be on video. If you would like to watch us, or if you don't see us right now, you can pull the gray bar on your GoToWebinar screen, either sideways or at the top, and you should be able to view us throughout the presentation. Also, we will have a Q&A after the presentation and the discussion we're having today. So you can submit your questions in the question box in your control panel on your screen. Please make sure you can access that question box. There's an orange arrow on the left side of your control panel. You can either expand or collapse with that orange arrow. So please be sure you can access that box. Also, if you have any questions that are non-content related during the presentation, you can send a question in that box and someone will answer you privately from our team. Lastly, if you're interested in continuing education credits, you can get one for this presentation and attendance, and you will receive an email from Facility Executive that'll be part of the email you get from Facility Executive post-event. So please look out for that. Now we'll jump right in. I'd like to introduce today's speakers. We have Paul Emperador, Marie Espinoza, and Doug Ridley. Paul has worked in the facilities industry for 25 years, gaining experience in operations, HR, and labor relations. As a seasoned executive vice president of strategic partnerships, he's passionate about advancing the employee experience and raising industry standards. Paul is also a board member of the Service Employees International Union Local 49 Health and Welfare Trust. Outside of the office, he enjoys activities such as golf, going to the gym, and spending time with his family. Marie is president of 4Insight and loves helping people learn to be comfortable using technology and finding solutions to be more efficient in their day-to-day tasks. Marie has spent the majority of her career in management, gaining experience in areas such as facilities, childcare, and technology. She spent the last 8 years creating 4Insight and is currently most passionate about the work she's doing to grow the company and its products. Marie's favorite part about her current role is getting to build innovative solutions for individuals and industries that never imagined how the power of technology could change their lives. While growing the company is her primary job function by day, she also enjoys traveling and shopping. Doug Ridley leads the innovation and product teams at 4Insight, working directly with industry professionals like our guest Paul to build the tools that support onboarding and empowering today's workforce to deliver the organizational change necessary to attract and retain employees in today's highly competitive market. So welcome, Paul, Marie, and Doug. Looking forward to the nice talk with you today. So a little bit about 4Insight before we do jump in. I just want to give a little more information about the company to provide some context and see where everyone is coming from in this discussion. Let's see, so 4Insight is on a mission to improve the experiences of essential workers, thus raising the service industry standards on quality and safety. They create solutions for facility managers or anyone providing a service to better control, manage, analyze, and empower their facilities. Using 4Insight can help you to ensure you have a properly trained service team that fully understands what's expected, delivering ultimate customer service, end user satisfaction, and ensuring nothing falls between the cracks. 4Insight challenges how any scheduled service is managed and can help control costs, allowing the most efficient and productive service delivery for you. Paul's company, SBM, is a major customer of 4Insight, and we're really happy to have him with us today to share his insights. SBM is a leader in facility management with over 11,000 employees, serving 500 plus clients with facility soft services. And these include Microsoft, GM, Nike, and Merck. So thank you everyone in the audience for joining us today. We'll go through the agenda quickly and we'll jump right into our panel discussion. So 3 key insights here that 4Insight has gathered and would like to talk about today with our discussion here. The 3 key takeaways is attraction of employees. How can technology be a job benefit with your staff? Engagement, language translations, job tasks, and training best administered through technology. We'll talk about some kind of benefits there and some thoughts from experiences in the panel. And employee retention. Empowerment through technology literacy is a new retainment tool. So we're going to talk about some ways that you might think about that with your staff as well. So we can move right along there. Before we do run into our first panelist question, we have a poll, an audience poll. We'd like to ask you all out there to answer this question since we will talk about recruitment. What is the biggest issue you're facing with recruitment today with your staff? The biggest issue, is it wages? Is it creating accurate job descriptions? Is it finding the talent, the noise in the market, or that potential candidates have moved to other careers outside of FM? So if you can please cast your answer there and we will show the results shortly. Okay, so let's see, pop those up on the screen. And finding talent, 70% is the leader there. 17% is the second answer there, wages, with wages, and 4% for accurate job descriptions, noise in the market, potential candidates. So finding talent followed by wages. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so Paul, Marie, and Doug, hi. How are you today?
Great.
Doing well.
Great. Good. Well, we'll jump right in. And the question we have here is, what are some breakthrough ideas for recruiting people? We just saw some of the challenges in that poll. So what are some of the breakthrough ideas that you're seeing as being successful for recruiting people in the market today? And I'll put that out to you first, Paul.
Well, thank you, Ann. I appreciate that. Before I answer the question, I thought it would be helpful to mention that SBM has been a customer of 4Insight from the beginning, really. We started out with one beta site where we spent a good 6 to 9 months testing the system, introducing that to our staff, going back to 4Insight to make adjustments and realizing some best practices. So we've been right there with them as the tool evolved. And after that, we then rolled it out to another handful of customer sites and over another 6 to 9 months. And then today we find ourselves with the platform in the hands of 8,000 employees, and we're continuing to implement the technology today and beyond. So back to your question about recruiting. There's no doubt that today we find ourselves in a war for talent. Companies are implementing many strategies to attract and retain qualified candidates. And compensation certainly is a major aspect of these. But along with increased wages, we're seeing instances that include signing bonuses, transportation allowances, and others that help get people into the door. But there's also another avenue that we're pursuing, and that's utilizing technology in an industry that historically has not embraced it for its frontline workers. Today's workers want to be challenged, and they also want to be provided with the tools that pave the way for success. And they want those tools to make their work lives easier. With the 4Insight platform, we're able to provide just that. So when our hiring managers are searching for and sitting down with candidates, we realize that we've opened a brand new door. You know, people are excited about the opportunity to join an employer who's innovative and forward-thinking. And it's really helped us to create a competitive advantage. And we're filling positions easily that would otherwise stay open for extended times.
Thank you. So Marie, can you take that question? What are some breakthrough ideas for recruiting people from your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I would just like to say, look, SBM is doing a great job with this, and they're leading the charge, as Paul mentioned, on how we do something different. Everybody is offering wages. These days, people are adding sign-on bonuses, other things like that, right? But when you give people the technology and the tools, you're showing that you're invested in them. So now you're recruiting them, showing them that you're going to set them up for success. You're invested in them. You value them. And more importantly, you're going to empower them. You're going to empower them with everything that they need in a different way to make them successful. So it's not just about recruiting, but also retaining. So they need to feel that after they come on and they're going through that onboarding experience, that they're also continuing to get help in all of those ways as well. So it's more than just the start, it's all the way through their time and their tenure with that company.
Okay, thank you. And we will touch on that as we get through the conversation. So thanks, Marie. Doug, do you have any additional comments on this question, ideas for recruiting?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I was listening to the business report on the way into work today. They talked about unemployment was a big deal. So currently there's excess of 10 million jobs in the U.S. and there's roughly 7 million people that are considered unemployed or looking for work. And so what that's doing across the board is it's putting pressure at every layer of that sort of employment ladder, where employers are now having to go down and pull people up. And so it's going to make, the farther down the rung you go in that sort of social or economic employment ladder, that harder it's going to be to retain talent and to attract talent, because everybody is now starting to, you're not only competing with the people in the same space, you're now competing with people maybe a rung or two above as everybody tries to fill these positions. And just on wages and throwing signing bonuses at people, to me, the signing bonus could be counterproductive long term. I think you probably have people that would switch jobs just for the bonus. You maybe aren't getting the right people. But I think if you're using technology and you're providing them the ability to get into a role that they're specifically qualified for, but allow them the ability to work with technology that's traditionally something that's been vacant in that space, you're going to attract people based on the fact that you're going to give them tools that they would have never had in another position like that. So not using technology, I think, in that way, at least advertising it and using it as a recruiting tool would be a missed opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So, those are some interesting insights on how to attract and recruit and bring in staff. So we'd like to talk about onboarding and engaging that staff. Marie, you alluded to, once they're on board. So we want to kind of go through that cycle right now and kind of move through the conversation that way. So I will put this out to Paul. Once recruitment's complete, how does technology help with that onboarding? What are you using with your teams? How are you using it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anne. So one of the most important aspects of that employee life cycle is when you first introduce a new hire to the organization, the onboarding process. So when we think about it, what do we do with that employee on that first day, that first week, that first month, that first 90 days? What happens there can set you up for success or failure. And by you, I don't just mean the employee, it's the company as well. And so as an employer, you don't want to have a revolving door of constantly having to rehire and retrain employees. That doesn't lead to achieving great results for you or your customers. With the 4Insight platform, we're able to clearly define expectations, demonstrate what success looks like through their KPIs, provide performance on feedback, and most importantly, recognize that employee for the results that they achieve. Whether we're onboarding 150 people at a newly acquired facility or hiring one new employee at an existing site, we have a standard way of bringing people into the organization. As an example, we had one particular customer whose cafe cleaning work was a major source of focus, and there were very specific expectations around the requirements. By having a standardized process to onboard individuals, any change in personnel, or say a vacation or a personal time off, did not negatively impact our performance in this particular area. And by leveraging the 4Insight platform, we're able to continue to ensure that we're getting those desired results.
Okay, and I think we lost audio.
Sorry about that. Once recruitment's complete, how does technology help with onboarding? I wanted to put that out to you, Marie.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We've spent a lot of time on features within this platform, and one very important one through the onboarding process is what we call position profiles. So those out there would probably see this as kind of a form of a job description. And we do have the job description, and we have, the important legal parts that I'm sure everyone cares about. But we've taken it to the next level, and we've given them other pieces that are important to them. It indicates, their purpose in being at the facility that they're at. It shows clearly who their supervisor is and who their supervisor is. Who's your chain of command? Who do you go to when you need help? How do you quickly access that? It has very clear definitions of their KPI, what's going to be expected of them. They can find their specific route there. If they're a union employee, they have their union contract at their fingertips. Their employee handbook. It's interesting because I often joke, I've been at a lot of these implementations, especially with frontline staff. And very early on, I was very involved in that process because I wanted to make sure that we were hitting this onboarding part and bringing technology in a way that had never really been done before. And so I used to joke with the staff when we went out there, and I said, hey, you know, raise your hand for anyone who has their job description in their handbook in your back pocket. I'm sure you guys all have it. You carry it around everywhere you go. And there wouldn't be very many hands. And I'd say, like, okay, well, some of you guys probably have it at home on your refrigerator. I know it's that important. You guys put it up in the refrigerator with the kids' schoolwork. And how many of you guys have it at home on your refrigerator? And there wouldn't be very many hands raised. But for all of us who don't do that and don't have it, and probably everyone on this webinar, I'd be curious to know how many people actually know how to get a hold of that. Do you know what your job description is? Do you know what it says? Do you have it to reference back to? You'd probably have to go look through a box of papers, look in your filing cabinet and try and find it, reach out to your HR. What we've done is we've empowered them through onboarding to have it at all times at their fingertips in the app. So they can go reference it whenever they want to, they can go understand it whenever they want to, and they always have it available. We want to change the perception. We're not trying to hide anything from anyone. We are not trying to trick you into the job that you're supposed to do and change it later. We want to make sure we're set up from the very beginning. You understand what it is that we're asking of you to do. We all agree on that. It's set, it's there. And if anything changes on it, you get a notification to know that it's changed. So full transparency, making sure you're set up for success from day one.
Great, thank you. Thanks. So Doug, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been in the digital space for a little more than 2 decades in software, and so I, you know, maybe have a different perspective on some aspects. But when I hear the onboarding process of providing somebody a union contract and a handbook and you know, their job description and other things, I just see mountains of paper. So aside from the organizing and tracking and printing and distributing of all that paper, you know, there's an impact globally because those are trees, you know. So I mean, save a tree, go digital. That would be the first thing, right? Other than that, look, I think the onboarding is your first opportunity to make an impression on an employee. All right, you never get a second chance for a first impression. And having a process that's more engaging, you know, it's going to be a better feeling from that employee. They're going to get a better onboarding experience. And I mean, let's face it, everything today is about experience. So I think you could leverage some tools digitally that would make that process smoother. You know, aside from just doing that initial onboarding with paperwork and job descriptions and helping disseminate that information. And also, you know, as you onboard through the next phase, I think when you start to train people, having a digital way to do that also would make a big impact.
Okay, so you know, so we want to talk about training a little bit now. So I think we'll move on to the next question about training best practices. And did want to ask about that, if there's any training best practices that you'd like to talk about. And I guess I'll bring that back to you, Doug, since you just mentioned some training, if you can extrapolate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, look, it starts, I mean, at the basic core, it's all the paperwork, right? I mean, when you talk about the size and scope of organizations today with the number of people and having to organize and collate and print and prep all of the paper, I mean, it's a lot of work. And so that there's not just costs on the pure, you know, what does it cost for a sheet of paper and some ink, but it's all the time invested in doing that. And then what's the next step? You get everybody in a room, you sit down, maybe you play a video on a screen. People are dozing off, not paying attention. It's a typical classroom setting. I mean, we all went to school, so we know what that's like. I just don't know that that's really effective. I mean, we're all aware of the digital training that sort of exploded all over the internet over the last decade. Yeah, right? Nearly all of us have used it at one point or another. You got companies like Coursera and Masterclass that have just reshaped how people learn. I mean, literally, we can go on YouTube today and we can learn how to do anything. You want to build a house, you want to take apart your car, there's a video there to teach you to do anything. And the reason is simple. Video is more engaging. The viewer has the opportunity to do it at their own pace, watch a little pause, think about it, try something. So it's better for both the trainer and the trainee because it's simpler and easy to use, and I can get it in the palm of my hand on a phone or on a laptop or on the desktop or whatever. There's one more big benefit aside from what it does for the ability to train people in a way that I think is easier for them to digest. Organizationally, you know, when it's done through the digital platform, you have the ability to track. So now you know who has taken what and when. And so when you have critical space, or you have certain jobs that require retraining, how do you keep track of when that person trained, right? If they have to take it twice a year, or once a year, or once a quarter, or once every 3 years, and you have tens or even, you know, 100 employees or more, how do you keep track of that? And you have another full-time job administratively just to track who's up to date on what training and who needs to take what. Then you got to schedule that. Then look, the digital solution, to just push it all through that, and you know, a lot of those training problems go away.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I want to ask Marie the same question, and I do want to just put it out to the audience, because obviously you all are in the audience here interested in this topic. If you have any best practices to share, please feel free to put them into the question section, and you know, we'll take a look. Just maybe kind of share your thoughts with us. It'll be private, of course, but just thought it might be a good way to share your thoughts as well as we're going through our conversation here. So Marie, can you talk about some best practices to share regarding training?
Yeah, as Doug mentioned, there's so much out there, right? So as we decided to build a training feature into the tool, the very first decision we had to make was utilize what was out there or build our own. And there's a couple of reasons why we decided to build our own. One being that we needed to control the experience of it. So yes, there's tons of platforms out there that do training, but we've had so many lessons learned through this process. A couple of them being the attention span of the staff. So we create short videos that are bite-sized information that they can digest. You know, if you think about the staff that's actually performing the work, they're busy. Their routes are full. They're just thinking about how they're going to get through every day. So when you tell them that they're going to have to spend an hour or 2 hours or even 30 minutes taken away from their time to do training, that's overwhelming to them, because the only thing that they're thinking about is what's not going to get done today. Am I going to get in trouble, right? So we want to take that and actually make it digestible for them. So all of the trainings that we do are 3 to 5 minute trainings, bite-sized pieces that they can do over time. And then at the end, there's a little short quiz. And the quiz is not meant to be a pass or fail or punitive. What it is it recycles through the questions, because our goal here is training to retain the information, to make sure that they know the information. So we don't want to have a bunch of people just failing quizzes, then we haven't met our objective. So it cycles through the questions. They can go back to the video. They can watch it over and over. And what it is, it's in the palm of their hand. So imagine, you know, you have a training staff, right, or a staff that needs to be trained in a classroom setting. We've all been there. No one wants to be the person that raises their hand and says, hey, I didn't understand. Can you rewind the video? And everybody's, you know, huffing under their breath like, great, we got to be here longer. We're just trying to get through this, right? We actually want them to know this information. It's important that they have the information. So when they have it in the palm of their hands, they can watch it, they can rewind it, they can do it as much as they want. But more importantly, some of this training is not stuff that you use every single day. So when it's in the palm of your hands, and or you know, something comes up and you haven't done it in a while, you can schedule your own refresher. You can go to that training. You have access to it at all times. Go to that training and take it again. You don't have to wait for your manager to schedule time. You don't have to wait to make sure we can get a conference room or in, you know, a room that has enough AV in it that we can schedule a group training. But probably the biggest impact that we've seen from this, which is super important in today's world, is that in a time where the whole world was not prepared for something like COVID, we had this device in over 8,000 employees' hands, right? Most of which was through Paul's company, SBM. And what we were able to do was, because it was in their hands, we were able to get training in a week and a half out to the staff in real time. And we were able to give them COVID, you know, COVID, how to properly wear a mask. What do you do if you're exposed to COVID? All in bite-sized pieces. And it didn't require us to be in a room. As a matter of fact, you couldn't even get everybody in a room at that time, right? we got to a point where only essential staff was allowed to be on these facilities. So even management wasn't there. So how were you going to get a manager together to make sure that people were getting this critical training that needed to happen? Because these are essential staff members. They still had to go to work every day. They still had to make sure the facilities were maintained. But we wanted to make sure that they had what they needed to be successful. And this is the ongoing part of what this solution provides. And we've seen it in real time as the whole world started to go crazy. And what are we going to do? This was one less thing that we had to worry about because we could get them information. We could communicate with them in a way that was super important to make sure that their health and safety was our top priority in training them.
That's great. So hit the ground running, it sounds like. And so, Paul, can you talk about that a little bit? Best practices to share regarding training? Pick up on that.
Yeah, and absolutely. Doug and Marie really nailed it here. And when we think about Foresight for SBM, we have to start by asking ourselves, what were the issues that we set out to solve? What are those big, huge issues that plague our industry? And one is, how do you improve quality? Number two is, how do you create efficiencies? And three is, how do you train your staff in a meaningful way? So when we look at the training, and as Doug stated, and absolutely the case in the facilities industry, how is it done? It's done by that classroom type setting. And time is very valuable in what we do. And so as Marie stated, we're taking people away from work and taking them away from their work areas. And when you do, even those paper handouts and those PowerPoint slides are extremely inefficient. Nobody retains it. And more importantly, as Marie stated, for our staff, they can't have a real effective way to go back to easily reference that material. So with the platform and their mobile device, our staff have the ability to view and complete those trainings anywhere at any time. And it's all at their fingertips. And when you talk about our employee strategies, that's very, very empowering to an individual employee.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. So we're going to move along here, and we are going to have a poll first, a second poll for the audience. So if you could all take a look at your screen, we want to get into the next section of our discussion. And again, continue sending your questions for the end. So the question here is, are you having issues with language barriers with your staff? Communication, for example, is it difficult to get messages to staff in multiple languages? Is that something that you find challenging with your staff out in the audience? Yes or no? And then we'll share the results again. And then we'll start to talk about engagement from here based on this. So let's see, no, 72%, yes, 28%. So we'll move forward from there based on that. I know there are definitely some challenges with some folks out there. So we'll move on to the next question with engagement. So with that in mind, how can companies better connect with their workforce? And I'm going to put that out to Paul first, since we pick up where we left off earlier.
Great. And so when we think about SBM, our people strategy revolves around creating a connected, empowered ownership culture. Our industry workforce is very diverse, and it's made up of people from many different cultural backgrounds, nationalities, and spoken languages. So the question here for us is, how do you bring all of these individuals together? And the old way of doing this was to translate key messages in one or two different languages and deliver that dreaded paper copy again. It's not efficient, it's not timely, and when you're dealing with a workforce such as ours, where we're so spread out across campuses and facilities, this is a huge issue in our industry, and really no one has ever solved this. Now, the new way, the innovative way, is what we're doing with the platform. Its language software allows an individual user to choose the language of their choice for their mobile device. And that's over 100 different languages, which is amazing. Among other things, this gives the employees the ability to receive and respond to messages sent by their supervisor. There's real-time data that's relevant to their individual performance. They have the ability to report facilities-related matters that make them the eyes and the ears of the facility, which is a tremendous benefit to our customers. and back again to the training, the ability to receive that training in their native language. Again, talk about empowering employees for success. But another interesting aspect that we're seeing has to do with the labor unions. We kind of touched on that, labor unions a little bit earlier. One of our, we provide services for a high-tech customer where we have over 350 employees on site. It's the most diverse workforce we have at SBM, where employees speak 18 different languages. Many of these union employees have been there for 10 plus years, and even their own union would have to hire full-time translators to communicate with their members. And so when you think about that, you realize these employees have not had a meaningful conversation with their employer or their union for years. That's a complete disconnect on so many different levels. And when SBM came in with the 4Insight platform, we instantly eliminated that roadblock. Problem solved, which was amazing. And we even allow the union to communicate through that tool. When you think about that, you think of the employer or the management union relationship, you ask, well, that doesn't make sense. But from our perspective, we say, why wouldn't we allow the union to utilize that tool to communicate to their members? After all, their members are our employees as well. So we have a common interest to support the same people the best way we can. And the stories we hear from our employees about how the improved communication has impacted their work life, it's truly incredible. But we believe we can connect now and inspire like never before, all because of that language feature that's integrated into the platform.
Okay, thank you for sharing those stories. And I want to put it over to Marie now too. From your perspective, Marie, what would you say how companies can better connect with their workforce with technology?
Yeah, so what we've seen has been the language piece for sure. So being able to support in multiple languages is huge, and have the technology do it. It's probably the only scalable solution. Hiring translators, as Paul said, 18 different languages there. It just, doesn't happen. So the tool does support over 100 languages for that reason. We've seen it as we work all across the country and even internationally, the need to support those different languages. And, it's interesting because as far as I've seen, everything that I've seen, these scope of works and what's required to be done by the frontline staff usually always comes in English. So how do you actually take that and connect with the workforce to make sure that they understand the work that they're being asked to do, and get it to them in a way that they can understand it? Those are super important pieces as we set them up for success and make sure that we're getting the quality results for the clients that they expect. It's interesting. I'll tell a real quick story because I know we're coming up on time, but it was interesting. As I went out to one of these locations, I showed up to a room where we were going to do a training and roll out the platform. And as I walked into the room, I was surprised. There was a teenage girl sitting in the room. And I'm kind of looking around waiting to see what's going on. And I was like, hey, I'm not sure she's old enough to be working. What's going on around here, right? But I kind of waited it out to see what was going to happen. Well, as we went through the training, I realized that she was there to be a translator. Her mom was one of the employees there. And so because her mom spoke a language that no one else at the site did, she was involved in every team meeting. She was involved in all of these things so that she can translate for her mom. So as we went through this and she was translating, we rolled out the platform. We started to work with her and her mom to get her comfortable with the platform. Fast forward to a couple weeks go by, and we come back to do our follow-up. And the little girl wasn't there anymore. And so the mom comes up to me. We do our training meeting, and the mom comes up to me, and she's just in absolute tears of joy. She could not believe that she could actually connect with her managers and her teammates in ways that she had never been able to do before. We really empowered that connection for her and opened up a world that she had never got to experience before. She's felt so independent. You could feel it just radiating out of her. She was super excited, and she was just in joy. She felt like she had the freedom to be in a workforce, to get her job done without having a burden on her child, right, to be able to get this done. And it was just an amazing story. I think about it all the time. Every time we talk about language and translation and connecting and empowering this workforce, this is the power that the technology has, right, to make her feel included. For the first time ever, she felt included in everything that was going on with that site. And she's been performing amazingly on her own. So that independence was just amazing for her. And to see it was amazing for me.
Oh, that's a great story. Thank you, Marie. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure it's not the only one, out there. So thank you for sharing that story. We're going to move further into retention. But first, we do want to have our last poll, and then we'll talk about the life cycle of employees and retaining them. So once you've put investment into what we've talked about already. So how much do you think it costs to hire a new frontline worker? Let's choose one here. Do you think it's $1,000, or from your experience, perhaps you have experience with this, $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000? Average to hire a new frontline worker and bring them on board. Let us know what you think, and we'll show what everyone has answered, and then Doug will go into some figures about this. Okay, so let's see. $5,000 was the vast majority, 83%. And okay, so what's the answer, Doug?
Looks like most people got it right. The answer is 5,000. Look, through research and communicating with a number of different companies, we've tried to dig into this number specifically, and our data shows that it's about $4,650 a person, to be a little bit more specific. When you factor in the job postings, the screenings, the interviewing, the background checks, the drug screenings, the onboarding, the training, all of that stuff adds up quickly. And I think in some cases, depending on the type of space, if it's critical space or not, it's probably much higher than that. We constantly see industry reports that the turnover rate in this space is, anywhere from 100 to 200% in some cases. I've even seen some regions where it's as high as 400%. So we just take a simple math equation here. If you had 100 people working for you, and you have the lower end of this turnover scale at 100%, it means you have to hire 100 new people a year. At $4,650, that is nearly $500,000 a year that you're spending on replacing staff that you had already hired. If you could just keep some of the ones you already have by providing them better tools, a better experience, making them feel more supported, making them feel more valued, you could really make an impact. If you just take out half of that turnover rate, you could save yourself, $250,000 a year in hiring costs.
Interesting. So to avoid that sort of thing, why don't we talk about what best practices you've seen for employee retention? We can close it out with that. Then we'll move toward Q&A, so please do send your questions in, continue to. Marie, I'll put that to you. What best practices have you seen for employee retention, based on what your experiences are, what we've talked about here? What can you share there?
We've talked a lot about it today. So it's setting people up for success, right? Setting the standard. So what's so amazing about what we're doing here is that we're changing the standard of what it takes to bring employees into this industry, have them be successful in this industry, and let them thrive in a way that they've never been able to do before. So I think it's about setting standards, setting clear expectations, empowering the staff to know that they are these essential employees. What they do is important. It matters to every single one of the clients out there, and let them know that there's a true investment in what we're doing with them and bringing them into a company. And it's not as easy as just changing companies and changing shirts. You want to go somewhere where you're being supported, where the company believes in what you're doing. And it's really a thankless job that they do, but there's so much that employers can do to make them feel important and see how important they are to an organization running smoothly.
Okay, thank you. And Paul, can you jump in on that and let us know your insights there?
Well, Marie and Doug stated quite a few very important aspects of the tool, and we've talked about that throughout this webinar. For SBM, we see the For Insight platform as a game changer. We're creating a valuable individual in an industry where the line level worker is largely ignored. We're taking a very task-oriented labor force and creating that connected, empowered ownership culture, something that no one in our space is putting an emphasis on. And we're truly breaking new ground. With that, we're aligning individual performance expectations with that of our customer, all the while facilitating an environment where we're setting people up for success and to achieve those exceptional results. And again, I mentioned earlier, and most importantly for many, is to be recognized for their accomplishments. This is ultimately what every employee wants. Everyone wants to be successful at what they do, and utilizing technology is a great way for us to facilitate that. So this platform really has ability to change the industry, and we're excited about our partnership with For Insight, and we're extremely excited about where we're headed.
Awesome, thank you. That's a great way to end our Q&A on the panel discussion. And I'm going to bring it over to Doug to wrap it up, and then we'll get into the Q&A with our attendees.
Sure. Hey, Ann, first of all, thank you for coordinating the discussion today. It's I agree. This has been a great opportunity for all of us to get together and talk about some really important things and ways that service organizations can leverage technology. Also, a huge thank you both to Paul and Marie. It's been great to hear your experiences today, both in driving and adopting the technologies that have made a big impact for a workforce that, that has been said today, has been traditionally underserviced. Real quick, let me just recap what we had talked a little bit about today. To attract, simply put, leverage technology, do something different that other people aren't. The workforce is not going to just magically appear, and we're not going back to just an abundance of workers that are just looking for work that you can pull from. And we're going to continue, I think, in the economy for the short and near term, and maybe even long term, for employers to really have to compete with each other. And it's going to go, far beyond just what people get paid. People are, I think, today looking for experiences, and the way that media and attractions has certainly had to evolve. I think that's definitely true. As far as instead of hiring expensive translators, printing endless hard copies of another handbook or training manual, the biggest pain point is getting everybody in the same room to do those things. So why not engage through technology where you actually provide an experience that people are actually looking for today? I mean, what would you do without your phone? Use your phone for everything. So if you are able to onboard and train and learn about the company and learn what you're supposed to do, have access to your job description, know all the things you're supposed to do, be able to check in and see how you're doing and what areas can you improve. It's an honest relationship that way between management and employees, to be able to see that all the time and in real time. And finally, I think the biggest message of the day here was on retention. I think that's one area where you have an opportunity, if you can make a measured impact on your turnover rate, that you have a opportunity to really save a lot of money for your company. It's bigger than just wages or gimmicks and things like that. It's you retain good employees by rewarding those employees and providing them tools that actually encourage them to take ownership of their space. I think Paul talked about that. You're helping them. In addition, you're helping them to become more tech literate, which goes beyond even where they are today. They'll be able to communicate and interact better with their children because they'll relate to things differently. I know we've had instances where people have given sort of first person accounts of them working with their children and having their children have to show them a little bit how the phone works, and that interaction was something that they're really happy and that they I felt that even that brought them closer together. And even other instances where they didn't even have a mobile device or even internet access in the home. So helping provide this benefit to an employee by providing a phone aside from just the fact that they got all these important work tools now, you're bridging, you're making an impact towards bridging a digital divide in this country and around the world that exists today, where there's a sizable portion of homes and families that just don't have access to the internet. So if you can make an impact there, then I mean those employees will certainly have a much better experience with your organization and are more likely to stay. Okay, I think I see a light over here that says we have some questions. So I don't have anything else to add. If we want to look at a few questions, then by all means.
Yes, sure. We do have some questions, so we will just continue to send in questions if anyone out there has more, but we can go through a few of these while we have some time. So, Doug, you were mentioning, and I'm directing this to anyone, but Doug, you had just talked about some mobile devices and kind of that, getting trained on the mobile devices, et cetera. And we had a question come in before you were speaking on that, but I do want to jump on that. And the question is from an audience member is, with the 4Insight system, how do you manage all the cell phones, any changes, costs, losses? So the basic question is, are the mobile devices, is it cell phones first of all, but are these mobile devices something that 4Insight can leverage for their customers, or how does this work is the question, I suppose.
Yeah, I can take that one. So we have two approaches that we can do. If the mobile devices exist already at the company, then we will try to utilize those as best as we could. Right now, we recommend that they're Android devices for a couple different reasons that we can talk about. But this is something that we had to learn along the way, right? And so we have a little bit more experience with this now, and we know this isn't something that everybody can do. So we will partner for sure, give lessons learned and help get things set up. We can either leverage our relationships, or we can help provide the devices as part of the overall solution and how we set that up when someone becomes one of our customers. So we try to take that burden away as much as possible, but give options and flexibility to how you can provide these devices, because it's such a huge benefit.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to kind of follow on that with another question that's come in about the actual, the rolling out the system or implementation, I guess it would be as well. And the question is basically, can you describe the rollout process? You just talked a little bit about the actual devices, but how long does an implementation like this take? Does it depend on size of organization, as with Paul's being a huge organization versus a smaller? Can you just talk about the general kind of what a facilities leader would expect with that?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the size of the location and how many locations are being serviced. So what we do as part of our onboarding process, or when we're talking to clients, is figure out how many locations, what makes sense to do. And we always do it in a phased approach, phased from a feature perspective, how many features we turn on and when, and then phased on the location. So all of that is built into our plan as we figure out how we support this. So as Paul said, even with SBM, as they were there from, kind of the very beginning of this, we still rolled it out in phases. So we work with the team to make sure that we start, at certain locations at a time, and then we'll add more and more locations. And then because the system is always evolving and we're always looking for ways to improve it, if we have a new feature that comes out or something that would be helpful, then we also work with the clients to see, okay, does it make sense to turn that on now? And do we want to turn that on, and how do we leverage that? So all of that happens through communication with each client to make sure, more than anything, we don't want to overwhelm anyone, and we want to set everyone up for success. So that's part of our partnership. This isn't a platform that we just give you and walk away from. It's an ongoing partnership, and we're very proud of how we do that to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the way that we're rolling this out. And we'll go, as slow as or as fast as we need to, depending on the client and what their needs are.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to kind of follow on that with talking about the rolling out and the actual implementation, or I guess the decision-making prior, if someone was going to be interested in 4Insight. Does the software integrate, or should it integrate with common workforce management or CMMS systems? What's the relationship there, if any?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry. We currently integrate with a number of really popular work order systems, Corrigo, Maximo, to name a few. We also integrate with back office systems. We connect directly with SBM's back office system. So as their HR teams hire and other things occur, our system gets automatically fed with their information when new employees on board and off board, so that these things are automated. So yeah, we can with the right APIs and the right product, and we can integrate with just about anything.
We actually prefer to do system integrations for some of these things over manual processes. It just makes the data in the system a lot cleaner and easier for everyone, and it's just more manageable. But there is a huge dependency on what the system is. We say that we also, we like to be the interface of that stuff. So some of these systems, especially legacy systems, could have, pretty large tentacles all over the place in the organization. So we don't want companies to feel like they have to replace that. That can also be overwhelming. So what we want to do is actually connect with those systems, but let For Insight be the interface into those systems so that we can control what that user experience is.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have time for one or two questions. This might be the last one here. I do want to ask you, this is a question that just came in. It's kind of more general in terms of attracting labor. So whoever would like to jump in on this, or attracting employees, I should say. And it's, can you speak more on practices to attract? What are some good examples of being able to do something different? Or we talked about some best practices earlier, but anything else about kind of attracting employees in this labor force, I suppose, or otherwise?
Paul, SBM is probably doing a pretty good job at this. Maybe you can chime in, but really it's in advertising these as benefits, right? Showing the difference of what you're doing compared to everybody else. I think you're muted, Paul.
Yeah, Marie, exactly. Everybody is interested in trying to find that newest and latest way to attract and retain talent. It's the compensation. We can't overstate that. That's important, but at the same time, we have to know our workforce. What is it motivates our workforce? What is the value add that we provide, or as an employer, that will attract and retain that demographic that we're looking for? And for us, it's what type of new ways has to do with technology. We're finding out in the marketplace that our competitors, no one is looking at what we're doing, and no one has really effectively gone after a solution that works. For Insight works, and it works for our employees, it works for our customer, it works for our corporate teams and our departments. And so if all those things are working in unison, then we're able to attract an employee and retain them with all the different benefits that come with that system. And that's really where our focus is, and we see great results coming from that.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I think that's all our time today. I want to thank each of you for participating. Thank you very much for your time, for your insight, and of course to our audience for attending today and listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to let you all know in the audience that, well, first of all, please notice the contact information on the slides here. If you have any additional questions, you can certainly visit the websites or reach out to Marie, Doug, or Paul with follow-ups. And additionally, this presentation will be available on the facilityexecutive.com website, as well as on the For Insight website. And I invite you to visit the forinsight.com website there. So thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. And goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.